And from later on this evening over on Jackpot Button Lewis 1, the quarter-finals of this year's UEFA Women's European Football Championship in Switzerland 2025 gets underway, with Norway taking on Italy live from the Stade de Genevieve in Geneva. That's UEFA Women's Euro 2025 from later on this evening on Jackpot Button Lewis 1 from 8 o'clock. But now, to all you British racing fans out there, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. David Coulthard or Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert or Eddie Irvine, or even Mark Blundell or Martin Brundle. It's the best of British about to head out on track now here on Jackpot Button Lewis 2, as we now head live to the circuit of Silverstone in Northamptonshire, as we have live extended coverage of round 8 of the Reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship, with once again live extended coverage of the 1995 British Grand Prix. Introduced by Jack Wright, with live race commentary from Murray Walker in Grand Prix Formula 1. Welcome to Silverstone, where as of today there are going to be more helicopter movements than any other place in the world. Every commercially built helicopter based in Britain has been travelling up down the length and breadth of this country, not just to bring spectators in their hundreds, but their thousands. And with over 6 British drivers all hoping to get on top of the podium as of today's race, it certainly is going to be the best of British, as welcome to coverage of the 1995 British Grand Prix. As we now reach the halfway point of this year's Reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship, welcome to Silverstone, the home of the 1995 British Grand Prix. This year, the familiar 5-kilometre circuit based here in Northamptonshire has had another recent facelift. Although the changes which Damon Hill had a hand in from last year in 1994 will hopefully make this an even more exciting race. Once again, following the deaths of Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger at the San Marino Grand Prix from last year in 1994, many of the Grand Prix circuits have been modified to reduce the speeds of the cars and increase driver safety. As a consequence of this, the entry into Hanger Straight into Stowe Corner has been modified to improve the runoff area, and also in addition with the Flat-Out Abbey Kink Corner has also been modified to a chicane in just only 19 days ready for the race from last year. And parts of the circuit, including the starting grid, are now also 17 metres wide, complying with the latest safety guidelines as of this year's championship. So we hope to see some close, but once again vitally safe racing as of this weekend. And once again last year in 1994, it was a day to remember for Williams' Damon Hill as he took his first home victory in front of the home crowd here at Silverstone. And he's being the next British driver to win the British Grand Prix following Nigel Mansell back in 1992. With Frenchman John Alesi in his Ferrari taking second, and third the Flying Finn of Mika Hakkinen in his McLaren Peugeot taking third. But last time out at Manicourt in France, there was a lot of controversy during the closing stages of the Grand Prix race, as Austrian Gerhard Berger in his Ferrari tried to impulsively overtake the race leader of Benetton's Michael Schumacher for the lead, but he ended up sideswiping him and nearly taking him out of the race, including himself. But following a last-minute impressive overtake on the Austrian going into the final lap and just pipping him to the finish line, many hours later, Gerhard Berger had to be summoned to the FIA stewards, and then shortly after was stripped of his second place on the podium and his well-earned championship points. And from earlier on this weekend, the president of the FIA himself, Max Mosley, had some stern words to say not just to Gerhard but also to the press on the unfortunate rise of unsportsmanlike behaviour style driving while competing in this sport, as currently Berger nearly faces a race ban following the collision with Schumacher once again from the last race. But as far with the current results at the moment, and also in both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship, David Coulthard currently leads by a narrow margin of points, and also Williams Renault are just narrowly beating Benetton in the Constructors. Now that since this is a home race for both manufacturers, as well as some of the British drivers who will be racing in this afternoon's Grand Prix, let's hope once again that a British driver will be stepping on top of the British Grand Prix podium as of today. And a very good afternoon, all you British racing fans, and a warm welcome live here from Silverstone. My name is Jack Wright, and welcome to live extended coverage of Round 8 of the Reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship with the 1995 British Grand Prix, once again here from the historic and of course classic circuit itself here in Northamptonshire of Silverstone. And as you can see on our background, as you can see here, we have got a very appropriate background of the circuit itself of Silverstone. And with also that being said, also welcome to the 8th edition of, once again, my World Playthrough Motorsport series of Grand Prix Formula 1, and to once again live extended coverage, as we just said, of the 1995 British Grand Prix here from Silverstone. As I said before, we have gone all out, of course, in our studio for this particular race, because as you do know, it is, of course, the home race for many of the British drivers that are going to be, of course, taking to the circuit, which they are going to be in just under 3/4 of an hour, and we will be following the race all the way up to, of course, to the checkered flag, and we are in for another exciting race as of this afternoon, especially with what, of course, with the championship situation is concerned, and of course, with that, we did also would like to acknowledge as well, for that matter as well, if you might remember from just a few weeks ago, we had quite the controversial end to the, of course, French Grand Prix from Magny-Cours, and if you did actually see from earlier on, you did see when the very impulsive and quite erratic driving manoeuvre on, once again, the overall race winner, that being Michael Schumacher of Germany for the Benetton Renault team, and that being of Austrian Gerhard Berger, when he actually deliberately went into the side of his car, and he had been ruled out of his after, of course, despite finishing in second place, and an amazing final lap, of course, one lap magic, I think it should be said, also from Michael Schumacher, winning the race overall in, of course, very damp conditions, as I said before, on the track at the circuit Nevers-Manicourt. It was the most thrilling end to any Grand Prix race we've ever had on this series so far. And as we, of course, now this is, of course, the 8th round of the championship, and this is unbelievably the halfway point of the 1995 Reimagined F1 season also too. So after this race there will be a few weeks break for the drivers and teams to go away and of course compose themselves, and also set up the cars for the next Grand Prix that follows shortly afterwards. And we'll have more on that, of course, later on in the program. And with also that being said, we can also just remind you, as we've also not just already said, that another particular circuit here on the calendar, due to, once again, previously from last year with the deaths of Ayrton Senna and fellow Grand Prix driver Roland Ratzenberger at the San Marino Grand Prix in Imola, many of the Grand Prix circuits on the F1 calendar as of this year have also been modified in order to reduce speeds of the cars and also increase the safety among all the drivers and teams. And as a consequence of this, we actually can confirm that this particular, that the entry to the down Hangar Straight into Stowe was being modified as of course, for this upcoming Grand Prix weekend, and to improve the runoff area, which we will be seeing when the race gets underway. And we do know that this actually unbelievably caught a load of the drivers out during qualifying yesterday, so keep that in mind, everybody. And as well as the flat out kink at Abbey, of course, and then it then became modified to a chicane in just 19 days ready from last year's Grand Prix here, which is absolutely crazy. And that surely then is followed into the farm corner and then going through the bridge, which you'll see later on in the race also too. But we do know that it also says here on my notes here on my phone here that parts of the circuit, such as the starting grid, are 17 metres, which is 19 yards wide, compiling with the latest safety guidelines. And there is a few, of course, all-important changes to the circuit, even though it is a favourite among all of the British fans that have been attending as of this weekend, and especially with what happened here this time last year with Williams's Damon Hill winning his first ever home race victory in front of the home crowd. We're hoping to see the likes of either him or his, of course, Scottish teammate for Williams of David Coulthard, but also we've got Johnny Herbert for the Benetton Renault team as well, and not to mention a very impressive pole position for the first time in from Northern Irishman of Eddie Irvine in his Jordan Peugeot, and also possibly the likes of Mark Blundell in his McLaren Mercedes, and also Martin Brundle in his Ligier. So a few of those British drivers are actually unbelievably driving for British teams as a whole also too, apart from Ligier, which are based in France. Of course, you could tell just from how it said, of course, the name of the team. But with that being said, before we get on to more about what happened during the practice and qualifying sessions for this weekend's British Grand Prix, let's give you a quick reminder of the Drivers' Championship and Constructors' Championship so far. But before we do get to that, we also, if you did see at the top of the programme, following that disqualification for, of course, Gerhard Berger at the end of the French Grand Prix, he was disqualified from the race, and then that meant that Michael Schumacher won, and unbelievably Mark Blundell winning also getting another podium finish, and I think that's his, I think, second or third podium of the year so far, which was absolutely incredible to see. And also current championship leader David Coulthard also managed to get third place there as well, and making it all important for continuing his lead, also unbelievably, in the Drivers' Championship. And as we can get to that straight to you right now, just to remind you, as we said already, he is currently at the top of the Drivers' Championship so far with 36 points, and then just unbelievably 8 points behind is Germany's Michael Schumacher for the Benetton Renault in second. Mark Blundell moves up to third with just by a narrow point margin of only just 2 points ahead of Johnny Herbert in fourth with 17, and then 1 point behind him in fifth is Damon Hill with 16 points, and then Rubens Barrichello in sixth is currently got 14 points, and then Gerhard Berger in seventh with 12 points, and then his Frenchman Ferrari teammate of Jean Alesi in 8th place with 10 points. And still at the moment, even though that he has been, of course, away from racing with the Red Bull Sauber Ford team for the last few races of this particular season of 1995, Carl Wendiger is still got 5 points, but his Frenchman teammate of Jean-Christophe Bourgnon is currently still at the bottom of the top 10, in 10th place of the top 10 drivers in the Drivers' Championship with still 4 points. And if he can get another points finish as of today, he could possibly overtake Carl, and of course, and hopefully take 9th place away from him. That is, if he can get another points finish as of this afternoon's British Grand Prix. And just out of the points, just to remind you also as well, we've got Olivier Panis for Ligier Muden Honda with also with 3 points, also tied with Japanese Yuko Katayama, also with 3 points as well in his Tyrrell Yamaha. In 13th, Taki Inoue, a fellow Japanese driver for Footwork Hart, is got 2 points. And getting his first point from last time out in Manicourt in France, finished Mika Hakkinen in his, of course, Marlboro McLaren Mercedes car, is in 14th with 1 point. Also tied with Germany's Heinz-Harald Frentzen for Red Bull, of course, for the Red Bull Sauber Ford team. And also in 16th, as they're all tied with 1 point, is also finished Mika Salo, also with 1 point in his Tyrrell Yamaha. Well, with that covering the drivers, it's still very little in it at the moment between the top 5 drivers so far in the Drivers' Championship. But if that is anything to go by, as we now look to the Constructors' Championship, there is only 1 point in it, as Williams are narrowly leading by just 1 point as they lead the Constructors' Championship with 42 points. Benetton Renault, once again, are just behind by 1 point with 41, and then just behind also by quite the deficit of points is McLaren Mercedes in third, as they have overtaken Ferrari, who are now dropped down to 4th with 22 points. And then in 5th place, Jordan Peugeot with 14 points, and a few points behind in 6th place being Sauber Ford with 10 points, but still yet to get any points from the last few races. In 7th, Tyrrell Yamaha with 4 points, 8th, Ligier Muden Honda with 3 points, and in 9th place, Footwork Hart with only 2 points still at the moment. Well, there you go, everybody. That is a quick reminder of the current situation in the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship as we edge to this, of course, the 8th round of this year's reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship with the 1995 British Grand Prix. Once again, just to remind you that the full race distance is of 61 laps, and the length of the track is at 5.057 kilometers, which is 3.60 miles. And the conditions also, as we just look outside of our studio, it's still remaining warm, but as you can see also in our studio, it's looking slightly dark. There is a bit of cloud around, and it's looking quite breezy outside there as well. So, but no rain is expected, as we mentioned at the end of the last edition of Grand Prix Formula 1. So that's good to hear that, of course, we're having another dry race, even though it will appear very differently visually, of course, when the race gets underway very, very soon. And but of course we can now get straight to giving you a reminder, heading into this being the 8th race of the season. It's still all to play for, with David Coulthard currently leading the Drivers' Championship, but we do know that previously with Damon Hill, since he won the British Grand Prix from last year, he is eager to repeat this feat in front of his home fans as of today. And he also unbelievably managed to set the fastest lap time in pre-event testing at Silverstone during the final week of June, and almost a second in front of his teammate David Coulthard, and a further 0.2 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. And also we do know that the McLaren, Jordan and Footwork and Pacific teams also took part in these test sessions. And unbelievably, Damon Hill, funnily enough, has also been under some additional pressure going into this particular race weekend, as his wife of Georgie Hill also was due to give birth to their 3rd child imminently. So that is absolutely crazy to know that actually that's happening also as we go into this particular Grand Prix weekend. And also, as you do remember from the end of or right at the beginning of the last edition of Grand Prix Formula 1, we do have one driver change update to let you all know about what's happening. And that the lead driver for the Footwork Hart team of Italian Gianni Morbidelli is going to be replaced by his fellow compatriot of, for also coming from Italy, of Massimiliano Max Papis, who, for some of you that do not know already, as we have got a picture on your screen right now, just so if you don't know what he looks like, he is an international Formula 3000 race winner, and also had been the test driver for Team Lotus last year in 1994, before the outfit withdrew from the sport ahead of this particular season. And he's also brought valuable sponsorships from Altea, which are a tyre manufacturer, to the underfunded team, which supplemented the income already been provided by his pay driver teammate of Taki Inoue, of course, as we mentioned him, of course, who comes also again from Japan to cover the team's budget for the year. And he also is going to be kept on for the team as a test driver, and we could hopefully be seeing him make an appearance at a later date, another Grand Prix race, but we'll have more of that, of course, news in all due course. And also pre-race discussions centred on the following year driver lineup with Michael Schumacher. He is it is rumoured to be said that from next year in 1996 he could be moving to Ferrari to replace Gerhard Berger, and that the future also for Damon Hill is also looking quite uncertain, as his current Scottish teammate of David Coulthard was also due to the McLaren team possessing an option on his services for next year also too. There's also been talks with the Red Bull Sauber Ford driver of Germany's Heinz Frentzen also being linked to a possible vacant position for next year for also the Williams team. So very interesting to hear that as well. And as we did say earlier on, back at the Canadian Grand Prix, the young son of the late Gilles Villeneuve, of Jacques Villeneuve, could also be in the mix of also, or possibly be given his first drive for the Williams Renault team as of next year also too as well. And there's also been the future plans now going to Michael Schumacher has dictated the rest of the driver market due to his status as the reigning world champion so far from last year of 1994, and that indeed that the only such champion of all the contemporary drivers and reputation, he is the best driver currently in the world of Formula One. And that it was also reported that his teammate, of course, Englishman Johnny Herbert, was in imminent danger, sorry as I say that word there, if I managed to pronounce it right, of losing his Benetton seat to test driver Jos Verstappen, who did actually drive last year, but he was available due to the collapse of the Simtech team after the Monaco Grand Prix, and was contractually owed race drives by the team principal of Flavio Briatore. And an interesting fact to know, everybody, that we also did know that the last year's German Grand Prix, he was the victim of a kind of unfortunate pit stop accident where the fuel hose actually leaked fuel onto his car and it immediately engulfed in flames. And lucky enough, Jos Verstappen managed to walk away from that injury with minimal injuries. He only just had burns just on his face because of his helmet visor being up. And luckily to know, it's good to know that hopefully that we will be seeing him in the future of Formula One. And despite also taking a podium finish from earlier on as of this year, he's also been rarely close to Schumacher's pace and only has completed of course a few of only had a few podium finishes in just this year's Reimagined championship. But there's also been talks of a new entry also to Formula One also being discussed, of the Japanese car racing car constructor of Dome, who's also been in the process of building a Formula One car. But they are hoping to join Formula One in not at the start of next year, but in 2 years' time, in the year of 1997. So very exciting to hear that as well. And also, most of the teams have also made modifications to their cars in preparation for this Grand Prix race weekend. Ferrari have made changes to their 412 T2 chassis side pods to improve airflow around the tyres, and also reverted to a diffuser design used earlier on in this year's championship. And also the Ligier team have had Martin Brundle's car fitted with power steering for the first time, and he chose to use it for this particular weekend. But unbelievably, his Frenchman teammate of Olivier Panis, who run the system, he actually did use it earlier on before Martin did from earlier on in the season, and he decided against it initially. But the McLaren Mercedes team have also revised its troubled MP4 10B car chassis, also suspension geometry, and Mika Häkkinen's car was equipped with a more powerful version of the Mercedes V10 engine for the warm-up session from earlier on this morning before the race. And the team principal of Ron Dennis had also rehired experienced designer Steve Nichols, who also had worked for the team back in the 1980s and in the week before the race. And also footwork, Hart have also arrived with revised suspension, and the Jordan team, also the Total Jordan Grand Prix Peugeot team, have also ran with new brake disc sensors also on their car. And further down the field, the 40 Course 4 team also introduced the revised version of the FG01 chassis for Roberto Merino, one of the Brazilian drivers, alongside his fellow, of course, Brazilian compatriot of that being Pedro Diniz. And also he does say here, as the lead driver for the team, he also had first driven the car in its revised specification at the preceding race, that being at the French Grand Prix at Magny-Cours. And the revised aerodynamic package includes a higher nose and new side pods, and both drivers had also tested a new development of the Ford Cosworth ED engine whilst doing practice sessions over this particular race weekend. Also, it says here, in the week leading up to the race, that Williams' chief designer of Adrian Newey reignited the controversy over the similarities between the Benetton B195 and Ligier JS41 chassis, which had been first flared up at the season opener at the Brazilian Grand Prix. And despite the FIA investigation had declared that the JS41 was legal earlier in the season, Adrian Newey had stated that as far as suspension geometry and aerodynamics are concerned, I said they are identical, and taken to a logical conclusion, will be in an IndyCar position. It is very dangerous. And as part of the Williams team's own preparations for the race, Damon Hill also tested an FW17 equipped with brakes made from steel, than the standard carbon fibre, and was reputedly impressed by their performance. So, well, that's good to hear that he, of course, was happy with that. And also on the topic of that, as we can get to of course, as we've that's the general news in the world of Formula One as we come to this particular race weekend. But let's get to practice now, and also qualifying, and taking provisional pole in front of his home crowd, that being, of course, Williams' Damon Hill. He commented on taking provisional pole on Friday afternoon from earlier on this week, and he said that final run was more like how I knew it could be done. Just a question of digging a bit deeper and taking a few more risks. It got a bit sideways here and there, and I used too much curb, at the exit of the last corner, that being a wood coat, but there is no way you can lift even for a fraction of a second. You have to keep your foot in it and hope that you don't get the car completely on the grass. After my fastest lap, I could see that I was P1 on the huge television screen alongside the circuit, and thought that was good news. As I drove around, the fans waving flags all around the circuit, and I appreciated that. Well, I'm sure, as I've said before, since, as you know, the fans here in Great Britain know how to be very supportive, and they can always be hopefully an advantage to all of the British drivers who are taking part in this year's British Grand Prix. And with a little update also what happened in the practice session, we do know that the Michael Schumacher set the pace on Friday free practice, which took place in dry and cloudy conditions with a time of 1 minute 29 seconds, 0.238 hundredths of a second. Damon Hill was at least 4 hundredths of a second behind, ahead of Jean Alesi, David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert and Gerhard Berger, and the drivers from the top 3 teams in the Constructors' Championship had thus far filled the top 6 positions. As a little fun fact from what happened at the race from last year, just to clarify that also as well. And despite the fastest time, he was unhappy, Schumacher, with the handling of his Benetton, and that's reporting more understeer than had been present in pre-event testing at the circuit. Well, that's a bit unfortunate, and really quite the unlikely situation to be in, and quite the predicament, actually, I think, there, unfortunately, there for Michael Schumacher. But for qualifying on Friday, there were dry and sunny, a bit blustery conditions, which meant that the drivers had to cope with strong crosswinds in the many high-speed corners, and it was also marked by an intense fight for pole position between the protagonists of Michael Schumacher and Damon Hill, which was watched by a 37,000, of course, spectator-filled crowd around the circuit. And initially, Schumacher set the pace and time of 1 minute, with a time, of 1 minute 29.151 hundredths of a second, to which he later improved to 1 minute 28.387 hundredths of a second. And then Hill initially struggled to match his rival's time in the final, twistier sector of the lap, but made a setup change and took provisional pole with a time of 1 minute 28.124 hundredths of a second in the final 10 minutes. And Schumacher who had increased the level of downforce on his car to compensate for the understeer, only to find that the reduction reduction in straight line speed was far too great, had been demoted to second place, but was confident that he and the team could improve the car's handling by, of course, the Saturday session. And Coulthard was more than 0.8 seconds slower than Hill in third place, and blamed the strong crosswinds for making his car feel very unstable at the rear end. And Gerhard Berger and Jean Alesi set the 4th and 6th fastest times respectively for Ferrari, both drivers disadvantaged by a lack of straight line speed compared to the Renault-powered Williams and Benetton cars, and that the fact that the Italian teams, were not allowed to take part in the event, pre-event testing at the circuit as per the FIA's regulations. But Jean Todt of the Ferrari team, however, described lack of testing as a feeble excuse for the team's loss of form compared with earlier races in this particular season. And Johnny Herbert separated the Ferrari drivers in the second Benetton, also complaining of rear-end stability problems with his car, with also Eddie Irvine setting the 7th quickest time in his Jordan, despite suffering a reoccurring brake balance problem ahead of Mika Hakkinen in the faster of the two McLaren cars. And this particular formation had also continued for when it came to qualifying as well. But it's very interesting to see that we do know that we can also quickly find out that on Saturday free practice it took place in mixed weather conditions, and then it was hit initially by a rain shower despite it being dry initially, and then it dampened the circuit somewhat, and the times were thus slower and more spread down the field than the previous day. And then Michael Schumacher set the fastest time at 1 minute 31.390 and said that he believed that his car handling was much more improved than compared to its performance on Friday. And he was followed by Lacey, Coulthard, Herbert, Parnis and also Frentzen. And then unbelievably, Damon Hill was left in 22nd position as a result of spinning off in the difficult conditions and then breaking his car's transmission as he attempted to restart the car. And John Alesi had a controversial session as he set a fast time under yellow flag conditions for the spin of Damon Hill, and then he later tangled with Bertrand Gachot's Pacific and recovered to the pit entry at high speed. And where he also had when he had spin to avoid marshals who were pushing the other Pacific of Andrea Montemini back to its garage. And with also that being said, that we do know that he did not take part in qualifying at all due to a failure of his car's brake master cylinder, and the underfunded Pacific team lacked the resources to bring a spare car to the event. So we do know that he is starting last in the back of the grid for this particular race, of course, Grand Prix weekend. And we do know that the race stewards witnessed this incident, but mistakenly called Lacey's teammate Berger instead. And once the correct identity of the driver involved had been established, he was not penalised for that happening, despite setting a fastest lap with, of course, a yellow flag condition. We do know that also, as we heard from Max Mosley at the top of the programme, that he's really been putting his, of course, opinion down on the unfortunate rise of unsportsmanlike behaviour style driving in competing in this particular season of the FIA Formula 1 World Championship. But he's also said here, commenting on the problems with the existing qualifying format that were highlighted by the wet conditions on yesterday, Saturday, sorry. A lot of TV networks have realised that qualifying can be a highlight of the weekend. We have 30 countries taking live feed from Silverstone, and the viewers were sitting there watching nothing. We have to do something about that, and it will be discussed by the F1 Commission. There are two potential solutions. One is to have an aggregate of the Friday and Saturday times, meaning that the teams have to perform regardless, and the second is to have qualifying on Saturday only. It is just my opinion, but I'd prefer the second option. You could have time sessions on Friday, which did not count for the grid, because to me, Friday is a huge waste of time. Well, that's very interesting to hear there from Max Mosley, the president of the FIA, and we do know that none of the top 24 drivers could improve their times from the previous day. And then, unbelievably, as we did actually see there, as we can confirm, as we have also got it on our screen just behind us in our studio, that an unbelievable qualifying performance from Damon Hill in his Williams with a 1 minute 33.928, hundredths of a second, of course, lap time. And brilliant to see that a home British driver is on pole at his home race, and great to see that along with the likes of Michael Schumacher taking second there. And we do know, unbelievably, as of this particular race weekend, as strange as it might sound, we are actually going to be following, of all of the British drivers, we're going to be seeing his, of course, teammate for Benetton of Johnny Herbert, who only managed to qualify in 9th place, but he had been trying, he'd been pushing the car quite hard. And even though he's got a slower pace than his teammate, he shouldn't be written off, though, because as we already know, he's already won one particular race quite unbelievably from earlier on this year at the, of course, Argentine Grand Prix at Buenos Aires from earlier on in the year. And it's very exciting to hear that we will know that initially that we did know also, it does say here that during that particular qualifying session, Schumacher had also initially slid off the road at Stowe Corner and had to rejoin the track using part of the old circuit. And then, unbelievably, also Johnny does say here, it does say here that he lost control of his car on standing water at the fast Copse Corner and spearing off the track into a heavy impact against the tyre barriers, but luckily he was okay. He was uninjured from his crash, and unbelievably the Benetton mechanics were able to quickly repair the B195's monocoque, and it's great to know that, as I said before, the of course, he still managed to get a top 10 time in, of course, on the grid for this afternoon's, of course, British Grand Prix. And it also does say here that we already mentioned there with members of the public, it did cause a concern among the Formula One paddock with the two-day qualifying system, and over 40,000 spectators were watching it. Of course, they had to be paid to attend the session or also watch it on television as we are broadcasting it now, and were being shortchanged as a result. And also going back to Ron Dennis, as he said, of course, the team principal of the Marlboro McLaren Mercedes, of course, he did say that the restriction of the use of team spare cars should be lifted in the event of wet weather conditions, while Pacific designer of Frank Kopuk, it is, he said his surname wrong, advocated a point system for qualifying in addition to aggregating the times over both days. I was going to say, because that is aggregating, that actually, that's the first time I've actually ever heard that word used in that way, but he does know that, as I've said, we're ready to confirm, Max Mosley is confirming a current qualifying procedure was due to be subjected of a review with possible changes to be introduced for next year's season. And then one-day qualifying is hopefully going to be introduced from the start of next year, and the season opener, which will be, as of I have actually been confirmed, even though that we, of course, it is going to be the final race of this year's reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship, that being the EDS Australian Grand Prix from the street circuit of Adelaide. It will be the final time that this circuit is going to be used, and from next year they're going to be heading to Albert Park in Melbourne, which is another public road-based track, which also is going to be of course, closed off from the public during the actual race weekend from the start of next year. Well, with that being said, I think that is, we've got through quite a lot to talk about there, and my apologies if I did go off on a ramble there, but so much has been happening with, of course, this particular race weekend, as we once again have hit the halfway point of this year's reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship season of 1995. So we haven't actually got much long, everybody, but with that being said, I'm now going to make a mad dash to the commentary box to join my very, of course, well-known commentating partner in crime himself, that being the legendary voice of Formula One himself, Mr. Murray Walker OBE. And with that being said, let's give you a quick rundown of the full driver lineup and, of course, starting grid as we edge ever so closer to, once again, round 8 of the reimagined FIA Formula One World Championship, as we have live extended race coverage of the 1995 British Grand Prix here from Silverstone. Here is the starting grid for round 8 of the reimagined 1995 FIA Formula One World Championship with the British Grand Prix. And in front of his home crowd on pole position is Williams' Damon Hill. And in second is his championship rival of Michael Schumacher in his Benetton. Third is David Coulthard, with Gerhard Berger of the first of the Ferraris in fourth. His Frenchman teammate Jean Alesi in fifth, and Eddie Irvine in his Jordan in sixth. Mika Hakkinen in seventh in his McLaren, with eighth Rubens Barrichello in the second of the Jordans. Johnny Herbert is in ninth, with Mark Blundell in 10th in his McLaren. 11th is Martin Brundle, with Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 12th. Olivier Panis is 13th, with Yuko Katayama in 14th. Pierluigi Martini is 15th, with Jean-Christophe Bouillon in 16th. Massimiliano Papis in his first drive for Footwear Card is in 17th, with Luca Badoa in 18th in his Minardi. Taki Inoue is 19th, with Pedro Diniz in 20th. Bertrand Gachot is 21st, with Andrea Montemini starting at the back, despite not qualifying, and also with another impressive performance from the likes of Mika Salo in his Tyrrell Yamaha.
Welcome to Silverstone, the home of the British Grand Prix.
FIA Formula One World Championship. Round 8. The 1995 British Grand Prix from the circuit of Silverstone in Northamptonshire. So everyone, are you ready? All you British racing fans out there watching exclusively live here on Jackpot Button Lewis 2 and also Jackpot Button Lewis Sport Productions, as we once again bring you live extended coverage of once again the 8th round of the reimagined 1995 FIA Formula One World Championship with the 1995 British Grand Prix here from Silverstone. And as I've said before, we are certainly in for an exciting race here, especially with the conditions being so unpredictable, just like a few weeks ago back at Magny-Cours in France. And luckily, as we've said before, we can give you a current weather report that the track is still remaining dry and it's still quite overcast with clouds, but no rain is expected, and it's quite breezy and blustery around there, so it might affect the car's downforce when it comes to certain drivers in their cars actually going through the higher speed corners, such as the likes of Maggott and Beckett's, and especially going down Hanger Straight, and possibly even going towards to the end of the lap with the likes of Brooklands and Priory, then into Luffield, and then the final corner being Woodcote before going down the start, of course, and finish and pit straight of this particular circuit of, once again, 5 kilometres length here in, of course, Northamptonshire. And but we do know that most of the British drivers have done a pretty good performance qualifying wise. But it's quite a shame there for Johnny Herbert. I know that he didn't want to be in 9th, but he once again had been struggling with the conditions during qualifying. And let's hope that as we're going to be joining him for this particular race on Grand Prix Formula 1, let's hope that he can put on a good performance. And dare we say it, because we have seen loads of things happen so far. And as I've said before, it is the beauty of this, of course, of this series is that, as I've said before, along with the weather conditions, the racing can be totally unpredictable. And as to also quote, of course, my fellow commentating, of course, friend, the great, of course, and legendary voice of Formula 1 himself, Murray Walker, anything can happen in Formula 1, and it usually does. I think I wouldn't be surprised if you might hear from him, of course, when we get underway. So with that being said, as all of the 24 drivers are now lined up on the grid and getting ready for the start, it's time for those 5 red lights to about to come on, and we are really in for a treat. Of course, turn up the volume and enjoy, all you retro Formula 1 and British racing fans, as live and exclusively here on Jackpot Button Lewis Sport Productions, and with live extended coverage of the race, it's time for the 8th round of the Reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship, and with the 1995 British Grand Prix here from Silverstone.
Watch for the lights, watch for the green, and it's go, go, go! Straight down towards turn 1 they come. Sensational! That's taken in upper position. Look at that!
And there was a collision straight going into Copse there, Murray.
He's got cleanly away.
Well, apart from that collision, I think that was Mark Blundell just behind. But that was a brilliant start there for Johnny Herbert. A real scrap from the Ferraris trying to stop Eddie Irvine in his Jordan Peugeot
Closing the gap.
as they head down Hanger Straight for the first time. Herbert keeps on the racing line, avoiding that runoff area. Through Club and now into Stowe Corner as we approach the new
7. Johnny Herbert. 8. Mika Hakkinen.
the Abbey chicane. And my apologies,
Off the pace there.
I didn't realise that was actually Mika Hakkinen that made contact with Herbert there, but a brilliant start there for the Englishman there of Johnny Herbert. As Damon Hill currently leads.
He really loves these kind of conditions.
Well, it's nice to know that we've got dry weather conditions. It is remaining quite overcast, but like I said, it's also quite blustery in places, so it might affect some cars' downforce.
In first, Michael Schumacher. Second, Damon Hill. In third place, David Coulthard. In fourth, Gerhard Berger. In fifth position, Jean Alesi. In sixth, Eddie Irvine.
And he's just half a second to Irvine, Herbert. And Michael Schumacher now is the new race leader as he overtakes
And the weather is fine.
Damon Hill. Well, not exactly there, Murray. You're quite You're quite mistaken there, dare I say. It is overcast, even though it looks quite visually like the sun is out. But like I said, the weather is quite fine. The track is still remaining dry. And Herbert is really up the rear wing of Eddie Irvine's Jordan.
7. Johnny Herbert. 8. Mika Hakkinen.
He is right up behind him. Oh, and he nearly touches his rear wing. Going through Copse. A 5-second lead as...
Not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that.
As Damon Hill regains first place. And he sets the fastest lap of 1 minute 38.780 hundredths of a second. Some brilliant driving here from the Northern Irishman in his Jordan. Eddie Jordan, the team owner, must be watching on quite hard with immense pride, since this is a home race for him, even though that's a...
Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, Gerhard Berger.
The team are, even though they have got an Irish connection, they are based here in the UK, and unbelievably just round at the circuit of Silverstone, believe it or not, everyone. But he's still putting the pressure on Irvine Herbert. Oh, he goes on the grass. He just overcooked it on the curb. But look how close he is now.
Behind him, pushing hard.
Absolutely, Murray. Sorry for interrupting you there. Oh! He can't be behind him for too long. The other cars are starting to find a gap, as Hill is currently the race leader, leading by...
Johnny Herbert. This young man really is a superlative driver. 8. Rubens Barrichello.
by 5 seconds, by over 5 seconds. But the margin has really closed down. The championship rivals of Schumacher and Hill are still fighting it out here. And I'm sure Johnny Herbert would like to be in the mix of it all, because he's still stuck behind Eddie Irvine's Jordan. Oh, he got a good run in there. Oh, he nearly had him going through Bridge Corner. Through Priory, into Brooklands, then into Luffield.
Race order: Michael Schumacher, Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard.
And through Luffield, down Woodcote, down the pit straight, as Michael Schumacher now regains the lead as he starts lap 4 out of 61 of this afternoon's 1995 British Grand Prix here from Silverstone. As 57 laps are remaining of the full race distance. Herbert still is weaving this way and that way through Maggott and Beckett's and down the Hanger Straight. But somehow Eddie Irvine is still managing to eke out a little gap. Well, I feel like he's giving it absolutely everything in his Jordan Peugeot there. Oh my goodness! And just out of nowhere as we just saw it.
7. Johnny Herbert. 8. Rubens Barrichello.
And as we just saw there, Eddie Irvine's Brazilian teammate Rubens Barrichello has now started to catch up with Herbert. The Jordans are really having a stroke of luck here this afternoon, and it's not to quote the term the luck of the Irish, but they are putting on a great performance. among one of the front runners. That being, like I said, Johnny Herbert still, who is still currently in 7th place.
Race order. Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Damon Hill, David Coulthard.
And amazingly, Austrian Gerhard Berger now takes 2nd from Damon Hill as he drops down to 3rd. Still under half a second between Herbert and Irvine here. Oh, he's gone wide onto the runoff near Stowe Corner.
He really loves these kind of conditions.
Herbert is trying absolutely everything to try and keep up with that Jordan. And he's managed to maintain a gap to Barrichello this time, who nearly got him at that the club corner earlier on a few laps ago. Surely he could be eyeing up for a pass here. Oh, there was a gap! But Irvine shuts the door.
Johnny Herbert. 8th, Rubens Barrichello. And he's gained a lot of time there. Oh dear, oh dear. He should be finishing in the points now.
Well, I don't know why you said that, Murray. That's actually supposed to be a good thing. And just as he crossed the line there, Johnny Herbert has now moved up to 6th place. He got a good run out of the final corner at Luffield and then down through to Woodcote. And now Michael Schumacher.
Closing the gap.
Well, it went down to nearly 10 seconds, but now that's gone down to 8 seconds now. As Johnny Herbert is now starting to catch up with the other.
Race order. Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Damon Hill, David Coulthard.
The other top 5 drivers. Next up.
Right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
Well, as you just said earlier on, Murray, most of the top drivers here in the, not just the top 6, but the top 10, they're all having their point to prove this afternoon. Oh, and he just went on the grass over that curb, but he just done enough to keep the car under control there, Johnny. You can.
Definitely gaining.
He's not just gaining there, Murray, but you can tell that he's really struggling with the windy conditions, the crosswinds that are going around the circuit, especially on the high-speed corners, like Maggots and Beckett's, but he's still managing to keep the car under control through there, and once again hang a straight once more. And now Johnny Herbert has set a fastest lap, a 1 minute 38.068 hundredths of a second, as he beats Damon Hill's time. And currently 3.370 hundredths of a second is the time gap between him and Frenchman Jean Alesi in his Ferrari. The current top 6
Right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
is Schumacher, Berger, Hill, Coulthard.
Order. Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Damon Hill, David Coulthard.
And just to, of course, add on with that, Murray,
And the gap is closing.
Alesi in 5th, and Johnny Herbert completes the top 6, as Schumacher is currently on lap 8 out of 61. Of this year's 1995 British Grand Prix. And I can see, I think that's a Ferrari in the distance. I'm not sure if that might be a Lacey. I don't know if he's caught up with a back marker there. We'll only find out when Herbert gets more close enough. But yes, the gap is going down. And it looks like, oh my goodness, I was going to say, it looked like it just changed from 4th to 5th, but I don't know who he just temporarily lost the position to. I think that's David Coulthard. Oh, but it looks like he's caught up with some back markers. No, my apologies. I think most of the front runners have caught up, and there is.
Not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that. And he's gained a lot of time there.
I think that might have been Roberto Moreno there in his 40 course Ford. He is currently in last place at the moment. And look at this. He is just half a second to Jean Alesi. Oh!
Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Damon Hill, David Coulthard.
And he manages to get past that, being, I think, Andrea Montemini in his Pacific Ford.
That is growing.
Once again, to remind you, he started at the back of the grid in last place due to having a main, I think it was brake gasket problem in qualifying, and he sadly couldn't do a single lap during the Saturday qualifying session from yesterday afternoon. But at least it's interesting to know that he's not still in last, because as we now see Roberto Moreno in the second of the 40 course Fords. Now, even though they've had some new developments on the car, they are still well off the pace of the likes of course, Benetton and other teams such as Sauber and
Really loves these kind of conditions.
and McLaren and Jordan. But it's incredible to see that we have still got a very close gap among the other top 5 drivers, as Johnny Herbert still remains in 6th place, as we have 51 laps remaining of this afternoon's 1995 British Grand Prix. Sorry to interrupt you there, Murray. As Michael Schumacher starts lap 10. And we've also just been hearing from Johnny Herbert's
Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Damon Hill, David Coulthard.
race engineer. Sorry to, I think you just interrupted me there, Murray. As Herbert passes Bertrand Gachot in his Pacific. That he's having a 2-stop strategy, and he'll be coming in for his first pit stop on lap 20. But there's very little in it so far. This actually is the closest margin of racing that we've had so far in all of the Grand Prix races we've had so far this year. And it's still unbelievably under half a second between Gerhard Berger and my apologies, Damon Hill in second and third. Well, absolutely there, Murray. He's not just lucky, he is really showing what he can do, and he's just passed. I think the back marker of Mika Salo in his Tyrrell Yamaha. He's closed it right up tightly now. As we just mentioned, John Alesi, he is now right underneath his rear wing of his Ferrari now, Johnny Herbert. Herbert quickly passes Luca Badoma's Minardi. Well, it feels like the back markers are really starting to slow down the front runners, as we can see. This is a chance for Johnny Herbert to find himself.
Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Damon Hill, David Coulthard.
Back in the running of this race. That was quick through. Woodcote there. He's really in his slipstream now. There's only a small gap between them now, and John Alesi would be really feeling the pressure in his Ferrari right now. As they approach Hangar Straight.
Enough to be lucky, you've got to be good. And he is that.
How many more times
A bit off the pace there.
are you going to say that, Murray? Well, I know that, but he's still maintaining a gap. Off onto the runoff again, but that corner, as we mentioned at the top of the programme here on Grand Prix Formula 1, it's really been catching other drivers out as well as Johnny Herbert. But it's nice to see that we haven't had a dominant lead so far. Even though Schumacher is leading, that time gap could instantly be shaved off when it comes to the first few pit stops. Oh, that's a good run through there. Has Herbert got anything else?
He's closing. He's right underneath the rear wing of the car in front.
He is, but he's just managed to just do enough there, Alesi. This has been...
Order. Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, Damon Hill, David Coulthard.
This has been some brilliant driving from the Frenchman so far. Even though he hasn't had the most best recent form.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Well, I wouldn't just say that there, Murray, but I bet he must be getting a sweat on because he is really pushing himself as well as John Alesi in his Ferrari. I know that his first pit stop is coming up, but I think Herbert might want to try and push a little bit further to see if he can try and really catch up with the others. Oh! And Coulthard's been held up. And Alesi just overtook Coulthard there, up into 4th place again. Coulthard is having a real battle
He's a bit off the pace there.
with one of the footwork hearts. I think that is Max Papis. And he just avoids going into him through Copse. And only his first race in Formula 1 as a former race winner of International Formula 3000s. Oh! He just does enough to get past. But he's really showing with his driving style that he can
He's losing ground.
compete at the highest level of world motorsport, and I'm sure we'll hopefully see
Race order. Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, Jean Alesi.
the likes of him possibly later on in the second half of this year's Reimagined F1 1995 season. And now Gerhard Berger is the new race leader as he overtakes Michael Schumacher for the lead. Oh, and Herbert's gone wide. I think he's struggling with his tyres. He does keep the car under control. I think the wind is affecting his car again.
He's closing the gap.
And despite that first lap collision with Häkkinen, Herbert is still... I think his car is relatively undamaged, even though he did get hit from behind at the first corner. And look at this from Herbert, really up on the rear wing of David Coulthard and his Williams Renault. My apologies, no, that's actually Damon Hill. Oh, he's gone wide again. Well, we do know he's using maximum downforce on his car there, Johnny Herbert.
Right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
To really get the most grip out of these tight corners, which I can see why.
Race order. Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, Jean Alesi.
Hence why it's made it a lot more challenging for the drivers as of this year. But great run out of Luffield there, and Woodcote.
Exceptional, spectacular overtaking there.
And a brilliant overtake from Johnny Herbert as he now takes 5th place from Damon Hill. There's all important points for Benetton Renault this afternoon. They are currently 1 point behind Williams in the Constructors' Championship. And Johnny Herbert is holding on to 2 valuable championship points, not just in the Drivers'
He's closing the gap.
Championship, but also for the Constructors. Jean Alesi is up next. This has been a brilliant performance from Johnny Herbert. Remember, he started from 9th initially, and he's done well to get up to 5th so far.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that.
Well, you've said that already, Murray. Oh, and I think the 40-course Ford.
Unbelievable. There was definitely contact between the two cars.
Well, there was a blue flag waved from the marshals there, Murray. And I think that being Pedro Diniz, he didn't see it and he just hit Schumacher completely impulsively there.
Race order. Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard, Jean Alesi, Michael Schumacher.
And we are seeing he's got a black and white diagonal flag for unsportsmanlike behaviour, and rightly so. And look at this! Johnny Herbert is starting to catch up with his teammate of
The gap is growing.
Michael Schumacher here, who's also been caught up in the back markers.
Oh my word! I'm sure there was contact there.
And as well as that, Andrea Montemini in his Pacific has done the exact same thing as Pedro Diniz. And he also gets a unsportsmanlike behaviour warning. What on earth is going on with the back markers this afternoon? I
Gap is increasing.
haven't seen driving like this since what happened at Monaco from a few months back. Completely disgraceful and necessary
Pushing it to the limit all the time.
driving indeed. Sorry to interrupt you there, Murray.
He's
Ooh,
taken a lot of time there. He's in the slipstream of the car in front.
well, he's passed Roberto Marino in the other 40-course Ford and has 43 laps remaining of the 1995 British Grand Prix. A real battle among the Benetton drivers of Michael Schumacher and Johnny Herbert. Let's hope they don't take each other out for goodness sake. They're both holding on to 4th and 5th so far. Schumacher holding on to 3 points. Herbert holding on to 5th with 2 points.
David Coulthard, Jean Alesi, Michael Schumacher.
Oh, and he's been slowed down. I think that's by Yukio Katayama. There is a blue flag. He needs to let him pass. He is being lapped.
The gap is increasing.
And he does let him pass. A 2.5 second gap to Schumacher now for Johnny Herbert. Oh, and he just goes wide on that. I think that looked like a curve, but I think that's also
He's definitely gaining.
a temporary runoff.
Buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Well, I know I may not be racing this afternoon, Murray, but I have definitely got a sweat on with all this action happening here. It's either that or it's quite warm in our commentary box here, Murray. But that's the British summer for you.
He's losing ground.
Slightly, but he is closing the gap to Gerhard Berger, Johnny Herbert. Now the question is he going to stay out for a few more laps here, Johnny, so he can try and put the pressure on the likes of not just his teammate, but also Jean Alesi. He did go on the grass there.
Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard, Jean Alesi, Michael Schumacher.
I think he wanted to avoid that footwork though, because he was on the racing line and he didn't want to collide with him, which I think was a somehow wise decision in that
He's losing ground.
unexpected predicament. Schumacher attempts to move on Alesi, which he just does. They nearly touch. Coulthard is also in second at the moment. As we've just reached over a quarter of the race distance and lap 20. But look at this! Herbert is now right underneath Alesi's rear wing. Up down to Carb Corner. A nice run out of there. Ooh, I think the Benetton-powered Benetton has got a bit more power outage than that Ferrari. But no, he tries to go again. Oh, almost doing a slingshot move. But Alesi keeps his 4th place. Brilliant driving from the Frenchman this afternoon here. But no, he's gone slow through Brooklands. But he's just held him off again. Herbert goes for a move now. Upward coat.
He's right up tight behind him, pushing hard.
They were nearly wheel to wheel going through the pit straight.
Order. Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard, Michael Schumacher, Jean Alesi.
This has been brilliant so far this afternoon from Johnny Herbert. I think if he continues with this and have a good pit stop,
Really is a superlative driver.
I think we could see him on the podium this afternoon. But amazing to see that the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger is currently leading the 1995 British Grand Prix. He's on the inside of Alesi. He goes for a move.
Spectacular overtaking there.
And he has made it stuck. That was a brilliant overtake from Johnny Herbert there. On once again, John Alesi as he moves up to 4th place.
And the gap is closing.
Well, even though he was going to be called in to have a pit stop, I think he is going to go a few laps more. A bit risky, but this track is quite tough on tyres.
He's definitely gaining.
Especially because some of these corners, well, as you can see, have been tightened especially to slow the speeds of the cars down following what happened at San Marino last year, from following the deaths once again of Roland Ratzenberger and the late great Ayrton Senna, who sadly never got the chance to race here last year.
He's a bit off the pace there. It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that. Race order. Gerhard Berger. David Coulthard. Michael Schumacher. Johnny Herbert.
Well, currently 3 British drivers are in the top 6 at the moment. And Johnny Herbert is now trying to catch up and close that 6-second gap to his German teammate, that being once again Michael Schumacher. A strong performance so far from the Benetton Renault team here. Schumacher holding on to a vital podium position at the moment of 3rd place. The gap goes down from the leader of to 9.753 hundredths of a second.
And the gap is closing.
But I'm sure the drivers will be coming in for their first few pit stops very shortly. And that could really mix up the field as we approach nearing the halfway race distance. With 38 laps remaining
The gap is increasing.
of this year's 1995 British Grand Prix here from Silverstone.
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
And I'm hearing that I think Johnny Herbert is going to see if he can try and attempt an undercut here.
Order. Gerhard Berger. David Coulthard. Michael Schumacher. Johnny Herbert.
I think Johnny is going to try and audaciously wait for Schumacher to pit, so that gives him time to get a gap out to
The gap is growing.
hold on to 3rd, but he's now moved up to 2nd, overtaking David Coulthard. He's now up into 2nd place. They are literally even Stevens with each other. Both Coulthard and Schumacher here. But it looks like I think they've been caught up by back markers again. And they have. Both Yukio Katayama and Bertrand Gachot in his Pacific Fords.
This young man really is a superlative driver.
Well, I know you've been saying that a lot with loads of the other drivers, Murray, but I have to give a bit of recognition to Johnny, because especially only his first season with Benetton in Formula One, but he's really been proving that he can be...
He's closing the gap. Superlative. He's right underneath the rear wing of the car in front.
He's now caught up.
Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert.
And talking about David Coulthard, Murray, he is nearly caught him up into third place. Coulthard, oh! And I think that might have been a collision there from, I don't think that was Moreno. I think that might have been Moreno there, and in the 40 course forward. And he's also got a black and white diagonal flag warning for unsportsmanlike behaviour. He was told by the marshals to let Coulthard pass, and I think Coulthard will be quite annoyed with that. Him causing unnecessary damage, Moreno, on Coulthard's Williams car there. And that's past Pierluigi Martini's Minardi Fords. And Johnny Herbert sets a new fastest lap there. It just disappears. 1 minute 37.
This young man really is a superlative driver.
0.432 of a second, I think that was. We'll have to clarify that next time it comes round.
And he's gained a lot of time there.
Surprisingly, Herbert's slick tyres are holding out quite well here, but I'm sure they are starting to wear quite vigorously now.
Race order. Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert.
There we go, my apologies. It was 1 minute, I was nearly there. It was 1 minute 37.76 hundredths of a second there from Johnny Herbert. But a brilliant fastest lap time nevertheless there from Johnny. He's catching up with Coulthard's Williams again through the farm curve and the bridge. Through Priory, into Brooklands. Oh! Well, Gab was there, but he just shuts the door, Coulthard.
Really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
But he was quick through Luffield and through Woodcote. But he's just done enough to keep him away there, David. Oh, and he's made contact with a footwork. What was he doing? I don't know if that was his fault or there might be a par piece there. He didn't see him coming. But he's been slowed up. This is a chance for Herbert. And oh no! He's got him! No, he hasn't! The Minardi and Footwork had to team up together to literally block him there. But that's not enough. And he's passed again. And he passes also Luca Badoa's Minardi. Oh my goodness. That was amazing driving there from those two, of course, fellow Italians.
Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert. The gap is increasing.
Oof! He tries to go for him on the outside of Brooklands and to Luffield again. Through Woodcote.
He really loves these kind of conditions, and the gap is closing.
But it's still not enough. He slows down for Copse. Still under half a second between both Herbert and Coulthard here. Oh, and my goodness, no way! Bertrand Gachot makes contact with David Coulthard's Williams. And now, oh my goodness, oh, an aggressive block there from Coulthard's. And that's an unsportsmanlike behaviour warning, a black and white diagonal flag for Bertrand Gachot there. Appalling driving there from the Frenchman. And that was definitely a case of sacre bleu. And not just for it being the colour of that particular race car, either of the Pacific Fords. Herbert still...
And really is a superlative driver. Race order: Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert.
Well, as you said, he may be a superlative driver, and here he goes! Has he? Yes!
Moved him up a place, and he's gained a lot of time there.
Brilliant overtake there from Johnny Herbert. It took him a few laps to do it, but now he's passed David Coulthard's Williams and now is in third place. Both the Benettons are now on the podium. Now they need to work together and see if they could possibly have a 1-2 finish as of this afternoon.
And the gap is closing.
4 seconds. 0.4538, sorry, hundredths of a second to Schumacher now for Johnny Herbert. He's really doing a long stint on these tyres. I just hope that the tyres won't give away soon. I know that he will need to pit, but he doesn't want to waste too much time because he has worked seriously hard to get this third place so far, Johnny. It's been a brilliant drive.
Enough to be lucky, you've got to be good. And he is that.
And team effort there from Benetton Renault, and he just went wide
He's closing the gap.
onto the runoff out through to Woodcote.
That's taken him up a position.
And because, unbelievably, I think...
Order: Gerhard Berger, Johnny Herbert, David Coulthard, Michael Schumacher.
I think that looked like Coulthard, or they look like he managed to take a... No, sorry, my apologies, he is in second. I think Schumacher must have pitted, so I think he was going to attempt an undercut there. But, oh, he's gone wide onto the grass through Club Corner. There's 10 seconds to Gerhard Berger, but the fact now, unbelievably, David Coulthard is right behind him. No!
It's Coulthard.
What on earth was Coulthard doing?
Off the pace there.
He's just rear-ended Herbert's Benetton, and that's an unsportsmanlike behaviour warning. I think there might be some damage on his rear wing. Well, he's got no choice, but he is going to come into the pits anyway.
Remember, anything happens in Grand Prix racing, and it usually does. He's lost the place. The gap is growing.
While he was struggling to try and keep in the pit lane exit,
He'll be very aware that races can be won or lost in the pit lane.
And he was nearly running out of fuel there, and he's got a bit of damage on his rear wing, which he is going to change. It's going to be a long pit stop here.
He's lost a place. That could have been faster.
Well, he wasn't going to risk having that rear wing taken off, even though it was only
Taking him up a position.
with 18% damage. And unbelievably, he managed to overtake someone.
Oh dear. He's lost a place.
Well, at the moment, Murray, and he nearly lost fifth there, but that was because there was some... he was actually trying to catch up with someone. I think that was one of the McLarens. I think that was Blundell who came in for his pit stop. And Schumacher, oh my apologies, Johnny Herbert rejoins in fifth place.
Off the pace there.
He nearly ran out of fuel there. That's actually, he was literally on vapours there. But he's now been topped up. And now Coulthard is now going to lead unbelievably as he leads the British Grand Prix by 47 seconds. And as we reach the halfway point
He's right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
of this year's 1995 British Grand Prix from Silverstone, we have had
He's closing the gap.
one incredibly close race so far this afternoon. But that was good timing with the pit stop because now he's just under a second to Jean Alesi's Ferrari. Now he is on fresher tyres, so he might actually have more of an advantage. With Alesi has got worn tyres.
Beautiful. He forces his way through.
And I think he must have overtaken someone as they just pitted. So he's now up to fourth place, and I don't know who he overtook there.
Gerhard Berger, Jean Alesi, Johnny Herbert.
I think that might have been Michael Schumacher. And what was going on there with that Pacific? I think that was Montemini. I think that's his second unsportsmanlike behaviour warning. If he gets one more, he could be facing disqualification from this afternoon's race. And he's also now just passed fellow Italian of Luca Badoa in his Minardi. Well, I think Herbert couldn't have timed his...
Lucky, you've got to be good. And he is that.
As you say that for another time, Murray, I don't think Johnny Herbert could have timed that pit stop any better, as he's still right back in the thick of it, fighting for a podium position here as on this afternoon's British Grand Prix. Here he is now, oh, nearly making contact.
Time there. He's right underneath the rear wing of the car in front. That's moved him up a place.
And I think now Coulthard has now just pitted. No, my apologies, that must have been Gerhard Berger. Coulthard still leads, but now Herbert is up to third place. With second place within his grasp now.
Race order. David Coulthard, Jean Alesi, Johnny Herbert, Rubens Barrichello.
And unbelievably, Rubens Barrichello and his Jordan Peugeot has now moved up to fourth place from those recent pit stops. I think Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher had just pitted just a few laps ago.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that.
Oh, he was very slow.
He forces
And I think John Alesi was caught napping there. Johnny Herbert has moved up to second. Now 57 seconds is the gap to fellow British driver for the Williams-Renault team, current championship leader David Coulthard. It's really become now a battle of the British this afternoon. A Scotsman, an Englishman, and a Frenchman in the top three so far. He's stuck behind Taki Inoue's footwork. There is a blue flag. And he gets out of the way. As David Coulthard starts lap 35 of 61 of this afternoon's 1995 British Grand Prix here from Silverstone.
Race order: David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Jean Alesi, Rubens Barrichello.
Well, I know that Johnny has got a lot of time to make up,
He's shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
but since he's got an open free track, and even if Coulthard does pit, which I don't know if he has already, that's how he managed to maintain the lead to Herbert. That is making all the difference so far as of this afternoon. And one of the back markers, that McLaren, I think that might be of Mika Hakkinen, who collided with him earlier on the first lap. He wants to try and get past him as quickly as possible here. And Marc Blundell is now in 5th place, with Jean-Christophe Bourniot in 6th place, who have both been lapped. Herbert approaches the back markers again. First up, Diniz is 40. He's passed. And also Montemini's Pacific, who he has no trouble at all getting past. Even though he was slowed down, now Coulthard is leading.
David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Jean Alesi, Rubens Barrichello.
By a whole minute. Coulthard leads from Herbert, Alesi in 3rd, Barrichello 4th, Blundell 5th, and Jean-Christophe Bourniot rounds off the top 6 so far. Now we do know that I think Herbert is going to pit again, but it looked like he had no much problems with his tyres, but I think he could have another long stint here. But as we now approach almost at 3/4 of race length so far, this has still been another impressive performance, it has to be said, from the young British driver, who once again has been on the podium for a few times so far this year, and he has only won one race so far in not just this year's championship, but also in his entire career also. Before the championship, his best result was of 9th place. Other drivers are starting their second pit stops here.
It's not enough to be lucky, you've got to be good. And he is
Well, I wouldn't just say he's been lucky. He has definitely timed his pit stops. And just through the, wouldn't say outright chaos that has been happening here at Silverstone, but just the unpredictability of all of the...
David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Rubens Barrichello, Jean Alesi.
Of all the racing action that's been happening this afternoon. But you have to give it to Johnny, I have to say. Because I think he has got the makings of a future world champion, dare I say it there, Murray. I think he needs to start setting some more fastest laps here, Johnny, if he's got any chance of catching up with Coulthard here. But it's wonderful to see two British drivers in the top three at the moment. Out comes, I think that was Moreno in his 40 course Ford. There is a blue flag, he needs to let him past. He's already on a...
Right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
He's already on 2 warnings so far for unsportsmanlike behaviour in this Grand Prix race. Coulthard starts lap 39 of 61. Of this afternoon's British Grand Prix here of 1995 here at Silverstone.
Johnny Herbert, Rubens Barrichello, Jean Alesi.
And no way! Rubens Barrichello is now in 3rd place. It is Jordan Peugeot. They are holding on to a possible podium for Jordan here. I can't believe I'm actually hearing that there, Murray. The Jordan team have really started to, I think, evolve, has to be said here. Somehow their reliability has really had quite the turnaround, which is great to see. Not to mention, we know that McLaren had Peugeot engines
He really loves these kind of conditions.
this time last year, and also there was quite the controversy involving Michael Schumacher not getting the command to take a stop-go penalty and being black flagged from the race, even though that he did come in to serve the penalty. He then was eventually then disqualified from the race from leaving it too late to serve that stop-and-go penalty within 3 laps. As we now just approach the 3 quarters and of this afternoon's Grand Prix. He just went wide there, Herbert, but he is keeping the car on the circuit here.
Race order. David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Rubens Barrichello, Jean Alesi.
I honestly have no idea how Coulthard has been managing to be so competitive and so consistent from over the last few races of this year's 1995 Reimagined Championship. He weren't like this, especially from last year
He really loves these kind of conditions.
when he came in shortly after the passing of Ayrton Senna. And then he was also temporarily replaced by Nigel Mansell. And before Damon Hill won here last year in 1994, he was the last British driver to win here at Silverstone and the British Grand Prix. But during his career now, since he's now officially retired from the sport, he has managed to win it an impressive 4 times. Twice at Brands Hatch, for it being a European Grand Prix, and as well as it being also hosting the British Grand Prix, and then not to mention an impressive win here back in 1987 when he nearly collided with his fellow Williams teammate of Nelson Piquet. And also that famous victory that he did back in 1991 when the whole of the circuit completely was invaded with British fans.
David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Rubens Barrichello, John Alesi.
It was certainly a race to remember for Nigel, and also the year later in 1992 he won again back to back and even managed to give a little lift on his car
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
to Ayrton Senna, who ran out of fuel in his McLaren at the end, and that was quite the amazing thing that happened. Apologies for the background noise, we're just having a few unexpected clatters of sound. I think that's down to also to the blustery conditions also at the circuit, as I've said already, as of this afternoon's British Grand Prix here from Silverstone. And unbelievably, Coulthard is starting to, well, I wouldn't say fall back, but with only 19 laps to go of the British Grand Prix, 1 minute 25 seconds there for Rubens Barrichello in 3rd place. I think he's definitely got a cushion to hit one more time, and even though I don't think he might win this afternoon, he seriously wants to give it a go. That is quite the tall order there for Johnny, but then again
David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Rubens Barrichello, John Alesi.
we did see an amazing comeback from, I think it was about 11 seconds when Michael Schumacher won the Spanish Grand Prix at Catalonia in Barcelona and managed to impressively take the lead from Nigel Mansell in the last few laps. And out comes, I think that might be David Coulthard. I'm not sure if that is actually him or that might be his fellow British teammate Damon Hill. I was going to say that I think he's been given a blue flag, because he is going to be lapped here. Herbert's all over Damon here. Well, we've definitely seen that the competitiveness of both the drivers and teams of Benetton and Williams. This has been quite an an incredible performance from both the constructors here this afternoon.
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time. Race order. David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Rubens Barrichello, Jean Alesi.
We now go on board with Johnny Herbert here. Down the Hangar Straight. What, 51 seconds is the current gap to Coulthard at the moment for Johnny here. The question is it too late for Johnny Herbert to try and have a go? A try to snatch.
Wait a minute.
No! What on earth was going on there? I didn't even realise Mika Salo didn't let Herbert past. That was shocking driving there from the Finn. And yes, and that's proven it.
Really is a superlative driver.
Despite that damage, Mika Salo, I think he might have collided with some other drivers. He's already immediately been shown the black flag. He is going to be disqualified from the race for that disgusting driving and that illegal blocking manoeuvre on Herbert.
Race order. David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Rubens Barrichello, Jean Alesi.
Coming up to the farm curve there. That was unbelievable. I can't believe that. And your reaction was quite something there, Murray, there. I've never heard anything like that come from your mouth before there, Murray. He's getting caught up by back markers again. But Herbert is doing enough to try and get past them here. One of the Pacific Fords goes into the pits. That's passed once again.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Pierluigi Martini. I think Coulthard might be struggling on his tyres because he's starting to drop back slightly. And this could be a good chance for Johnny Herbert here. If he can maintain his tyres, I think he could maybe just do enough here. But remember, if he were to have a problem now, he has still got a huge gap to Rubens Barrichello. So, as long as he doesn't have problems with his tyres, that second place will be hopefully safe.
David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Rubens Barrichello, Jean Alesi.
Oh, and he's gone on the grass again, just through Bridge Corner. But he keeps the car on the tarmac. Down to 45 seconds. Could we see Johnny Herbert almost attempt the impossible here? Now down to 44.289 hundredths of a second. The challenge is definitely on for Johnny here. And another fastest lap of 1 minute 37.656 hundredths of a second.
You've got to be good. And he is that.
He's really pushing his Benetton Renault car now here, Murray. Past putt pieces, footwork hearts. 42 seconds is now the gap. I think he is struggling with tyre wear at the moment.
David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Rubens Barrichello, John Alesi.
If he were to pit now, the chance of winning the British Grand Prix could be thrown out the window. So I think he's made a brave decision to stay out here for the last 13 laps of this afternoon's British Grand Prix.
Some adrenaline in that car.
It's now down to 39 seconds. This is quite the opportunity for Herbert here, as he catches up with a McLaren. I think that's Blundell.
The gap is increasing.
36 seconds is the gap. With only 12 laps to go of the 1995 British Grand Prix here from Silverstone. He nearly had a move there.
Race order. David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Rubens Barrichello, John Alesi.
There's a blue flag being waved. He needs to let him past.
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
The back markers really are starting to hurt Johnny here. He needs to get past them quickly. Oh! But he's now passed. He's been held behind by a Red Bull Sauber Ford.
He's brilliant.
And I think that's Jean-Christophe Bouillon.
Hang on. That was almost certainly a collision there.
And I can't believe what Yukio Katayama and his Tyrrell was doing. And that's a black and white diagonal flag for unsportsmanlike behaviour. He should have known that he was going to be lapped. Shameful driving from the Japanese driver there.
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time. Race order. David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Rubens Barrichello, Jean Alesi.
I have to give credit to Herbert's determination here, though. He's trying to
He's a bit off the pace there.
prove that he can perform to the best of his ability under pressure. As he approaches Ferrari's Gerhard Berger. But he's going quite slow as well. There is a blue flag. He needs to let him past, and he just manages to get on the outside of him through Beckett's and down the Hanger Straight.
He's losing ground.
While I honestly thought the chance was going to be there for Johnny Herbert to possibly win here, but it's been really unfortunate that he's had to deal with the likes of those back markers and causing all sorts of disastrous problems for him.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that.
Well, as you've said before multiple times this afternoon, Murray, he hasn't just relied on luck, he has really proven through his sheer driving style and talent.
Race order. David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Rubens Barrichello, Mark Blundell.
He thoroughly deserves a podium position this afternoon, as he just beats Luca Badoa out of the pit lane exit. It's down now to 26 seconds.
And he's gained a lot of time there.
Now initially he did have plans to do a one-stop here, Johnny Herbert, but for him to bravely just do a one-stop here and maintain these tyres is a feat in itself, I have to say here. From 9th to 2nd is a very
And the gap is closing.
impressive performance from the young Englishman. As he passes Martin Brundle's Ligier.
Enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that. He's closing the gap.
Well, he is going down to 21 seconds. But is it a case of too little too late here? As we are into the final 8 or 7 laps of this afternoon's 1995 British Grand Prix here from Silverstone.
Race order. David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Rubens Barrichello, Mark Blundell.
A podium is definitely on the cards, but could we see some miraculous driving here from Johnny Herbert in the final stages of this afternoon's Grand Prix? Because the race is still far from over here. Mark Blundell is currently 4th.
Definitely gaining.
Jean-Christophe Bourniot in 5th in his Sauber Ford. And John Alesi, amazingly, getting back up into the points in his Ferrari, holding on to the last place of a Drivers' Championship point in 6th.
And the gap is closing.
It's starting to go down, though.
Buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Every single lap. It may seem impossible, but I can see that Herbert is willing to give it a go, even though it is quite adventurous. At least we do know that I think he will have enough fuel to get to the end of this Grand Prix.
Closing the gap.
It's now down to 13 seconds as he overtakes Massimiliano Max Papis in his footwork cart once again. He must be struggling with grip here, I'm sure David Coulthard is. It went from 13 now back to 16.
Race order. David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Rubens Barrichello, Mark Blundell. And he's gained a lot of time there.
As we approach, nearing the final 5 laps.
I'm sure there was contact there. What's happened?
Well, I don't know why Taki Inoue did not let him pass there. That was some more dirty driving from the Japanese driver. Another black and white diagonal flag for unsportsmanlike behaviour there. Whoa! And out of nowhere, I think that was Jean Alesi's Ferrari,
Got to be good. And he is that.
as he does a last-minute pit stop. And now, the time gap of 10 seconds, as 6 laps are remaining of this afternoon's
He's definitely gaining.
1995 British Grand Prix here from Silverstone. He needs to get past Alesi as quickly as possible. Oh, he's gone wide into the club corner. That didn't help. But now the gap goes down to 8 seconds. Somehow, Johnny Herbert has a chance here to take the lead from Coulthard.
He's a lot of time there.
Now it's down to 6 seconds. I think Coulthard might be caught up in with back markers, and he's now finally passed Alesi Herbert. The final 5 laps.
Race order. David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Rubens Barrichello, Mark Blundell.
It's now down to 4 seconds. And I think
These kind of conditions. Closing the gap.
if I'm not mistaken, Murray, that could be Coulthard. And it is! Could we be seeing another late and last minute drama here at Silverstone? No way! He's right up Coulthard's rear wing here, Herbert. He's going really slow.
He's definitely gaining.
I can't believe this is actually happening, Murray. He's nearly there. Oh! Coulthard is weaving this way and that way to try and stop Herbert getting past. What an incredible development.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car. Race order. David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Rubens Barrichello, Mark Blundell.
And closing to this afternoon's British Grand Prix here at Silverstone. Down Hanger Straight. He's got the slipstream, but Coulthard just holds Herbert off. It's England versus Scotland here in this Battle of Britain here at Silverstone. Who will be the bravest though? Oh! He's nearly there! But Coulthard shuts the door! He could have gone for a move, but no, he's got the racing line covered anyway. I think this could be the closest end to any Grand Prix we've had. And even it might just be just as close as the one that happened at Magny-Cours in France. Coulthard slows down through Luffield. Here's a chance for Herbert. And...
Beautiful. He's in the slipstream of the car in front.
no way! They were nearly wheel to wheel down the pit straight.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
I'm nearly going to lose my voice from all the excitement here, Murray. Surely Coulthard can't hold Herbert any longer. Down the Hanger Straight again.
Race order. David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Rubens Barrichello, Mark Blundell.
But here's a chance. He's going to try and go for a move on Club. But Coulthard says, oh, no, you don't. This has been incredible from these two drivers. Both for Williams and Benetton Renault. Both Renault powered. Oh!
There was contact there. It's Blundell.
And out of nowhere, Mark Blundell has overtaken Rubens Barrichello. We now have 3 British drivers on the podium. Yes!
Now he's in first place.
And since Coulthard slowed down, I don't know what Blundell was thinking. He rear-ended Herbert,
This is the next to last lap.
damaging his rear wing. But Herbert is still going. And now he leads on the penultimate lap, lap 60 out of 61.
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
Of the 1995 British Grand Prix here at Silverstone. And Blundell has managed to overtake Coulthard. Has Herbert just done enough? He now leads by 2.558 hundredths of a second. I hope the tyres...
Johnny Herbert, David Coulthard, Rubens Barrichello, Mark Blundell.
No, my apology. I was going to say, I thought... Because it looks like I know Blundell just hit him earlier, but it didn't look like he actually is still in third. Coulthard looks like he's... Sorry, my apologies. Barrichello is still in third place as Johnny Herbert starts
And it's the last lap of the race.
the final lap of the 1995 British Grand Prix. Herbert has only got 1 lap to go until a landmark victory for the British driver. And can we see Coulthard hold on to that second place. Blundell is trying desperately to unlap himself.
Really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
Through Stowe Corner. Down Club Corner. Well, if he wants to, he can let him past. And he does. But that's because Blundell is currently lapped, so he has let him past. So there was a blue flag anyway. So he's managed to leave a gap out. And he's still leading by 5 seconds. Through Bridge Corner, into Priory of Brooklands and Luffield. I can't believe he's about to do it, to take his second race victory of the 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship season.
David Coulthard, Rubens Barrichello, Mark Blundell.
Johnny Herbert!
What a marvellous race, what a great win.
Yes! It's a win for Johnny Herbert. That's a great result for the Benetton team. This'll really help the team in this year's Constructors' Championship.
And my apologies there, Murray. I didn't realise you were just going to remind us one last time in the race order. But unbelievably, Britain's Johnny Herbert in his Benetton Renault wins the 1995 British Grand Prix here at Silverstone in front of the home crowd. That was absolutely phenomenal driving. I can't believe that we have seen another comeback from completely nowhere. I feel like I had no idea that David Coulthard did struggle on his tyres, and he tried his absolute best to try and keep up with Johnny Herbert, or tried to stop him in the closing stages of this race. But that was absolutely incredible. And before I lose my voice, I have literally lost my mind after that result. But once again, to clarify, and for the second time for this year, Johnny Herbert in his Benetton Renault wins his second race victory of the 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship. And once again, to clarify, he wins his first time at the home race of his career and of course, in the championship. Once again, to clarify, Johnny Herbert for Benetton Renault wins the 1995 British Grand Prix here at Silverstone. And I have got to stop while I catch my breath. Absolutely unbelievable. How did he do it? How did he do it? How on earth did he manage to do that, what I've just seen? That was absolutely indescribable. That was just... I have no words. That is the first time in this series I literally am lost for words. Well, everybody, sorry about there if you just seen me there, of course, speaking a little bit beforehand. But what can I say, everybody, after that unbelievable and phenomenal drive from, once again, Benetton's Damon Hill, but Johnny Herbert there, and British driver for that matter as well, of Johnny Herbert, as for the first time ever, and not just for, of course, picking up his second victory of this year's Reimagined 1995 F1 Championship, but to win in front of his own crowd here at Silverstone. That is absolutely incredible, and that is another real life, of course, result that happened, that we've managed to replicate in this series. But sadly, we didn't see any, of course, a poor performance from his German teammate of Michael Schumacher, who sadly missed out on the points. I do know that unbelievably in real life he actually made contact, or actually it was Williams' Damon Hill actually went for a move on him going into the Priory corner, but he basically locked up and took him out of the race as well as himself, which wasn't the best move, I have to say, that on his account, to be honest. But unbelievably, a great performance once again from Johnny Herbert. Once again, as I said already, winning in front of the home crowd. The British fans would be overjoyed with that result, as well as it for not just being a British driver, but a British team of Benetton. And as well as that, unbelievably, the other two teams that finished on the other two steps of the podium in second and third. Another great podium and a great performance there from David Coulthard, who managed to catch up with, unbelievably, Johnny Herbert in the last few laps. But the fact that we saw Johnny Herbert only with just a one-stop strategy, mind you. We initially thought he was going to do, of course, a two-stop strategy, but the way he maintained his tyres, and he nearly ran out of fuel coming into, he had to obviously delay that first pit stop going towards the halfway point of the full race distance. I mean, I think that made all of the difference for him to try and push himself to try and close the gap. And from nearly over a minute ahead for him to close that down. But I think Coulthard struggled with his tyres going into the closing half of the race. And the last quarter of the race, and I think that made all the difference. So an amazing drive, though, nevertheless, from Johnny Herbert. But unbelievably as well, I had no idea it was going to happen. But I have to give my utmost respect to also Brazilians Rubens Barrichello, who for the first time in Formula One gets his first Grand Prix podium, and also the best result for the total Peugeot, of course, Jordan Peugeot team there. With third place, and that was absolutely incredible. Originally he started from, I think, about 8th on the grid there to from the start, and then to work his way up through the field. Also, Eddie Irvine got a good start as well, his Northern Irish teammate there. Jordan actually were looking like they were going to have a very interesting race. They actually made it difficult for Johnny Herbert right at the beginning, as we did actually see earlier on in the race. But absolutely amazing to see that there. And with that, let's clarify the rest of the result for you as well, with the full race classification. After 61 laps of this afternoon's British Grand Prix here from Silverstone, once again to clarify, Johnny Herbert wins his home race of here in the UK and of Great Britain with a total race time of 1 hour 43 minutes 3 seconds 0.667 hundredths of a second. David Coulthard once again finishes second and was behind by 7 seconds. 0.62 hundredths of a second. Once again, Rubens Barrichello rounding up the top three with just behind by 45 seconds, 0.109 hundredths of a second. And even though we did actually see him, because we initially did see him make contact with Herbert right at in the last few laps of the race, Mark Blundell surprisingly finished fourth for McLaren Mercedes there, even though he was initially, I thought he was going to be behind by a lap, but he managed to unlap himself, because I had no idea that he wanted to try and unlap himself past Herbert in the last few laps of the race, but he finished behind by 1 minute 30 seconds, 0.424 hundredths of a second. And then once again finishing in the points once more is Frenchman Jean-Christophe Bourgnon for the Red Bull Sauber Ford team, even though he was lapped by 1 lap. And then rounding off the top 6 in the points in the drivers as well as the Constructors' Championship is also fellow Frenchman Jean Alesi in his Ferrari, and he also finished behind by 1 lap. And unbelievably, other Frenchman of Olivier Panis just missed out on the points, finishing in 7th, and he finished behind by 2 laps. And unbelievably, the Italian driver of Luca Badoa finishes in 8th in his Minardi Ford, behind by 4 laps, as well as the Japanese driver of Taki Inoue in 9th place for his in his footwork art. He nearly avoided disqualification after a few occasional unsportsmanlike behaviour warnings, and just the same also for Roberto Moreno, the Brazilian, in his 40 course Ford, who rounds off the top 10 and finishing in 10th place, and he finished behind by 6 laps. And that is absolutely crazy how they managed to stay in the top 10 due to all the other drivers pitting as well. My apologies if you're hearing me feeling a little hoarse, of course, and the reason why is because I literally nearly lost my voice during that race. It was absolutely insane, the amount of action and drama, and it was, I mean, just to honestly describe that race in one word, I would honestly have to struggle to even think of one to even describe what that race was like. But the fastest lap once again was set impressively once again by Johnny Herbert when he managed to really make those consistent lap times count throughout the second half of the race and the final quarter of the race. And he set the fastest lap of 1 minute 37 seconds, 656 hundredths of a second. So with that being said, now that's all been and done, and another Grand Prix has now come to an end, and as we now have reached, unbelievably, the halfway mark of this year's FIA Reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship of 1995, as we now reach the halfway point of the season, it's time to see the all-important Drivers' and Constructors' Championship point table so far. And even though that Coulthard did lose out to Johnny Herbert in that race, he still managed to get on the podium. An impressive 2 drivers on the podium, both being British and a Brazilian, but all of the teams that they came from all were based in the UK, so that was a nice consolation anyway, since we've already had 3 British drivers on the podium as you go back to the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal. But anyway, as I said before, let's get straight to the Drivers' Championship. And despite him finishing in 2nd place, David Coulthard still manages to continue his lead in the Drivers' Championship with currently 38 points. And now he's 10 points ahead of Michael Schumacher, who didn't score any points at this particular race as of this weekend. And he stays in 2nd with 28 points. But now he is just 1 point ahead as Johnny Herbert moves from 4th to 3rd now. And with that all-important 2nd race victory in this year's championship to him, he has now added just a 1 point gap between him and his German teammate for Benetton Renault, with once again him in 3rd place with 27 points. Mark Blundell, after another impressive points finish, finishing once again 4th remains in 4th with 22 points. Rubens Barrichello moves up once again and getting ever so closer to hopefully taking 4th place away from Mark, as he stays once again still at the moment in 5th place with 18 points. Even though he didn't finish in the points today, in 6th place is Damon Hill with 16 points, and as well as Gerhard Berger in 7th place with 12 points, who didn't also finish in the points today. But John Lacey, with only that 1 point that he got for finishing in 6th place today, he still remains in 8th place. But that impressive points finish once again from Jean-Christophe Bouillon, who once again finished in 5th place with the all-important 2 points, has now overtaken his, of course, previous Red Bull, sorry, team, Sauber team, Ford Sauber team mate of that being of Carl Wendiger, and he has currently got 6 points, and as I said already, Carl Wendiger, it rounds off the top 10 at the moment, still at the moment with 5 points. And we won't bother with the other drivers, since the drivers that finished out of the points from the top 10, there was no change there, so we can move straight on to the Constructors' Championship now, and all that all-important race victory there from Johnny Herbert. That has made Benetton Renault now retake the lead in the Constructors' Championship, and they now lead by just 4 points over Williams, who now lose their lead and drop down now to 2nd, as they now still managed to get a few points thanks to David Coulthard, but they are now currently holding down they've currently gone down, as I was going to say there, down to 2nd place with 48 points. McLaren Mercedes continue their, of course, their dominance in 3rd place with 32 points. With that all-important 3 points there scored from Mark Blundell, finishing in 4th. And Ferrari only get 1 point from Jean Alesi, and they still remain in 4th place with 23 points. And also Jordan Peugeot continue to close that gap down, as they still remain in 5th place with 18 points. And Sauber Ford still, of course, have managed to break, actually, unbelievably, the top 10 barrier at the moment, due to that impressive points finish there from Jean-Christophe Bouillon. They originally did have 8 points, but now they have made it to double figures, as they now have got 10 points, but still in 7th, 8th and 9th once again, since they didn't finish in the points once again. Tyrrell Yamaha with 4 points, Ligier Musen Honda with 3 points, and once again Footwork Hart with still only 2 points after all 9 rounds so far of this, my apologies, all 8 rounds so far, after 8 rounds of this year's reimagined FIA Formula 1 1995 World Championship. Well, there we go, everybody, and we would just like to, of course, wish you, of course, not just wish all of you viewers, we would like to say a huge thank you for, of course, once again, staying with us after this truly incredible race. And as I said before, I initially thought that down to that those last few laps there with Coulthard and also with Herbert, I mean, that could have gone either way, and it's only just thanks to the game with the AI. But we did see quite some dirty driving from among the midfield drivers, and some of the back markers as well, as we did actually see. And as I said before, it's crazy that just the AI, just out of nowhere, we did actually see Mika Salo pick up a black flag for being disqualified for quite I think quite some dangerous driving on Johnny Herbert there, as he was making his way around the bridge corner through Farm Curve and then through the bridge, going into the likes of also to Priory and Brooklands. But with that being said, that all-important race victory there for Johnny Herbert has moved him up now into the Drivers' Championship. And now with that being said, we, as I've said already, have now reached the halfway point of this year's 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship, and with 9 races down, we still have got 8 more rounds still to go out of 17, and we are going to be taking a few weeks break now, but next time here on Grand Prix Formula 1, you only just have to wait in a few weeks' time, as we will be staying in Europe, as we'll be heading to round 9 of the 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship, and we head to another home race, but the home race for Michael Schumacher. And yes, everybody, will be heading to the very famous, long and winding, of course, fast circuit in Germany of Hockenheim for the 1995 Mobile 1 German Grand Prix, and we are looking forward to hoping to seeing, after the impressive home race victory from Johnny Herbert on this particular edition of Grand Prix Formula 1, could of course his German teammate of Michael Schumacher follow suit, and if he actually manages to win this race, he will be straight back in the Drivers' Championship. It's all been down to, so far, him and David Coulthard at the moment in the Drivers' Championship, as I can quickly remind you, as I had quickly get it up on my phone, there is only 10 points in it at the moment, and if Coulthard doesn't score any big points in the championship, or of course in the next round, he will lose that lead almost in an instant if Schumacher wins, and if Herbert also can possibly help him as well by getting a decent result as well. So it's still all to play for, everybody, and as I said before, this could still be anyone's championship as we go into the second half of this year's championship. Well, with also that being said, don't forget also, if you thought this was just as exciting as you would have expected it to be here on Jackpot Button Lewis Sport Productions, we still also have loads more exciting sport for you to enjoy, as later on this evening we will get to the business end of, once again, the Women's European Football Championship, where Italy will take on, once again, Norway, and it will be the start of the quarterfinals. They will be getting underway from the Stade de Genevieve in Geneva from later on this evening on Jackpot Button Lewis 1 from we kick off at 8 o'clock. And then don't forget also, you can also find out that from tomorrow evening, also on Thursday the 17th of July, also from of course will be live also from the Stadion Letzigrund in Zurich, the capital of Switzerland, as England take on Sweden to hopefully progress to, once again, the semi-finals. And I do know that, especially after the dominant performance from the Lionesses, after an impressive 6-1 win over their fellow home nation of Wales, even though that they sadly missed out on a clean sheet, but that all-important victory managed to keep them in second place in their group, and they managed to qualify and going into the quarterfinals of the championship, and they have managed to join France as well, along with the likes of Germany also coming out from alongside Sweden. Even though they managed to beat Germany in their last match, Sweden, it's going to be very interesting to see, because the last time that these two countries met, it's going to be very interesting to see if they can, of course, I'm sure that the Lionesses, following their impressive 4-0 win over Sweden, of course, from over a few years ago, and not to mention that, I think, literally now iconic backheel goal that was scored from Alessia Russo. It would be nice to see that happen again, but you never know with this sport also as well. And we can also confirm that later on this weekend as well, we also have the match of Spain against Switzerland, the host country of the championship that are hosting it. And they will be playing in Vienna at the Stadion. It almost sounds like I'm going to actually say an inappropriate word, but at the, pardon my language, at the Stadion Wankdorf in Vienna. That's where those two teams will be, of course, playing. And not to mention also from later on this weekend, on the 19th of July, you can also see France take on Germany as well. And I think that's going to be a very exciting clash, especially with the way that I know that unfortunately France did manage to beat England in quite the controversial way. I know that the referee from Sweden had everything to I think be responsible for, and it was quite an undeserving lose for England, but it's nice to see that they bounced back with an impressive win over the Netherlands that happened excuse me as I clear my throat again. And they had an impressive 4-0 win and clean sheet performance over them there. But it's going to be very interesting to see how the Lionesses go. And then again, being, of course, the current European Women's Football Championship champions, I think it's going to be certainly, definitely must-watch sport watch here on Jackpot Button Lewis Productions, Sport Productions. And we hopefully we'd like to wish the very best of luck to all of the team. From everyone here on Grand Prix Formula 1, we would like to wish, of course, the manager, Serena Wiedmann, and all of the players that have been picked to play for, of course, the UEFA Women's European Football Championship, the very best of luck, and hopefully they will get to the semi-final. Hopefully for another time, for I think the third time on their record that would be, if that were to happen, but we can only wait and see from tomorrow evening. But anyway, with that being said, of course, that concludes another edition of Grand Prix Formula 1 here, once again, live from Silverstone, and for the 1995 British Grand Prix. Once again, we've had another back-to-back British winner here at, once again, Silverstone. And Johnny Herbert, for the second time this year, doesn't just, of course, win his second championship race of the year, but also a Grand Prix race of the year of this year's championship. But we will hopefully see that Benetton are right back in the thick of it in the Constructors' Championship. But once again, don't forget that we will also be talking a little bit, and we will be reviewing the first half of the season in a very exciting mid-season review special of Grand Prix Formula 1 in just a few weeks' time before the next round, once again, which will be round 9 of the 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship, with the 1995 Mobile 1 German Grand Prix from the circuit of Hockenheim. But from me, Jack Wright, thanks very much for watching another edition of Grand Prix Formula 1, and as always, until next time, we'll see you for more exciting retro Formula 1 action, all here on Grand Prix Formula 1 in the next round of the championship, once again at Hockenheim in Germany. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you very soon. Now I'm off to go and give my voice a rest and have a quick drink, because it's definitely been another hot race, only on, of course, my World Motorsport series, and like I said, being Grand Prix Formula 1. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you very, very soon. Bye-bye. Are we done? Oh, I really did shred my voice there. And that was totally unintentional. I think I've never been that crazy with the race that we just had today. Wow, but how amazing that a British driver, of course, you know, me all decked out in, of course, a British shirt and everything and with the flag. Man, it has been an amazing first half of the season, hasn't it? And certainly in real life, you know, David Coulthard weren't even that well, it's not to say he weren't that good, but just through the beauty of the game and just seeing him constantly getting these good results, you know, with the podiums and everything, that was amazing. But a brilliant drive there from Johnny Herbert, what we saw there. That is now becoming a reoccurring thing on this series. Well, I wonder if it will ever happen again, especially with Michael Schumacher now hoping to win his home race at Hockenheim in a few weeks' time. Well, that will have to wait, I'm sure, for a few weeks and for another day anyway. But well done, everybody. This has been such an amazing, of course, edition of this series to shoot again, and I couldn't have done it without you guys. Well done, everybody. And with that being said, that concludes the 8th round, of course, round 8 of the 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship, and the 8th edition and episode of Grand Prix Formula 1 with the 1995 British Grand Prix from Silverstone. And cut.